All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you had a nice short break. We've now got another hour before lunch where we're going to squeeze 2 sessions in. We're going to talk now about mobile strategy. The last session and last panel just told us how important mobile is for 2017. In fact, they were unanimous in that. They all recommended that mobile was going to be what you wanted to focus on for the upcoming year. Now we're going to be talking about advancing your mobile strategy. We have Corey Padveen here, who is a partner at T2 Marketing International, and he's going to cover everything you need to know about increasing your mobile presence and getting your mobile site ranked. Corey.
Great. Thank you very much. Morning, everybody, or afternoon, everybody, at this point. My name is Corey Padveen. Today we are going to be talking about increasing your presence on mobile, some of the strategies that might be worth applying as far as getting the most out of your mobile strategy. I am going to be going through as much as possible for about 15 minutes or so, and then we are going to be opening it up to questions. I'm sure that there aren't any shortage of questions when it comes to mobile. It's amongst the most popular topics in the market today, whether you're an affiliate, whether you're an operator, whether you're just a small business, large business, mobile is extremely important. So, without further ado, we'll get into it. I am Corey Padveen, as I mentioned. I am a partner at T2 Marketing International. Tell you a bit about myself. My background is largely in econometrics, so economic statistics. That led to a real focus on data, and a lot of what we do at the consultancy is we focus on building out consumer-focused strategy, consumer-focused or consumer-oriented strategies that allow brands to leverage things important like mobile, like data, and build out those kinds of brand development strategies. I'm also in the process right now of writing, or I actually just finished the first draft of Marketing to Millennials for Dummies. So that's going to be on shelves in June. Go buy a copy. Or you can come back to one of the affiliate shows where I'm sure I'll have boxes full of copies to be giving away. Now, as far as getting into the topic of mobile, we could start with a few facts. I'm sure you've heard a lot of facts and figures when it comes to the world of mobile. It is definitely a topic that is discussed ad nauseum when it comes to affiliate marketing, when it comes to marketing in general. Perhaps most importantly is the amount of time that is spent engaging on mobile. Now, this is across the board when it comes to any age group. If you look at consumers under the age of 35 years old, this number is significantly higher. But across the board, over half of all time spent engaging with any form of digital media is spent doing so on a mobile device. So whether you're on Facebook, the majority of time is spent engaging on the Facebook app. In fact, the majority of Facebook's ad revenue is coming from a place like mobile. We also see that close to 90% of all time engaging with mobile devices is spent on a mobile application, not necessarily on the mobile web, which leads to the question of whether or not it makes more sense to invest in the development of a small mobile application, or if it makes more sense to focus on your mobile ad strategy within the mobile web, depending on who your audience is. And lastly, just about 2/3 of all ad spends in 2017 are expected to go towards mobile advertising. So again, there is this huge shift away from traditional digital advertising, which has gone towards things like Google AdWords, which has gone towards the kinds of advertising on desktop, and is now moving largely towards mobile advertising. So, what can we do to make the most of our mobile presence? Now, in order to get an idea of that, it means understanding what the world of mobile looks like when it becomes a focal point for networks like Google. So how many people here are familiar with Mobilegeddon, or who have heard about Mobilegeddon, who have had panic attacks about Mobilegeddon? So a small handful of people. Essentially, Mobilegeddon is the term that the world of marketing assigned to Google's updates related to focusing on mobile first. What does that mean? It means that Google has now looked at mobile and said, this is extremely important. We can't let it sit by the wayside and simply apply the rules of desktop to the rules of mobile. That means that what happens on mobile now operates independently from what happens on a desktop version of the same advertising, of the same website, of the same brand. So everything that's taking place on mobile now ranks differently than it will on desktop. So everything that you do when it comes to mobile needs to be approached in a unique way. It needs to be approached in a mobile-only facing strategy. Now, it is important to realize as well that it is not the end of the world. Just because there is now this entire shift, a cataclysmic shift in a lot of ways when it comes to your mobile strategy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose all the work you've done when it comes to search. It doesn't mean that you're going to lose all of the benefits you've gained as a result of some of the strategies you've implemented on desktop. It just means that you need to understand the importance of mobile, and it means that you need to now focus on mobile as a standalone strategy as opposed to looping it in together with the rest of your efforts when it comes to marketing. So, what does that mean? Well, responsive sites, this is in 2014. Responsive sites, everybody here knows what a responsive website is? So for those of you that aren't familiar with a responsive website is one that adapts its structure, adapts its layout, and adapts its visibility based on the screen on which it's being shown. So for example, if I'm using a regular desktop computer, I'm going to see a website in version A where the website is, let's say, across a 3-column spread. If I'm using a tablet, just a standard iPad, for example, I might see a 2-column or a broad 1-column layout. And if I'm using a mobile device, I might see, well, I'll certainly see a 1-column layout where the images, where the text, where the calls to action, buttons, etc., are all going to be laid out in one long column as opposed to spread out over 2 or 3, depending on the size. And this all happens within the same website. So it responds to the layout, the pixel structure of the screen on which it's being shown. Now, in 2014, websites that were implementing this kind of responsive design were being rewarded by Google based on the fact that they had been adapting to consumer behaviors. So that's a lot of what Google tends to do, is based on consumer trends, based on consumer behaviors, Google rewards websites that are paying attention to that and updating accordingly. So for example, when I'm sure everybody is familiar with Penguin and Panda, show of hands. We're going to do a lot of hand raising today. It's going to be very exciting. So Penguin and Panda essentially have been put in place in order to increase the, let's say, attention marketers, brands, content developers are giving to the quality of their content. So originally, and I'm sure many people are familiar with the concept of content farms, which were essentially websites that were built to just jam as many keywords as possible onto thousands and thousands of pages so that you could find yourself on the first ranking of Google based on something like keyword density, the amount of keywords per amount of content in terms of a ratio of keywords to content. That was once a big factor in Google. When they implemented Penguin and Panda, websites like eBay, for example, lost a huge amount of their first page rankings, and that's because their first page rankings were largely made up of pages that had just been stuffed full of keywords related to those products. Now, they didn't suffer as much as, say, some other sites that were designed specifically to game the system, but the idea was that Penguin and Panda were put in place in order to improve the quality of search results that people were getting. Responsiveness is another question of quality. When Google started seeing mobile becoming a much more prominent use for searching, they started rewarding websites that used a responsive search, so a responsive layout. Then, in 2015, they moved a step further and actually focused on mobile-friendly pages. So you had responsive sites and then you had mobile-specific sites. So websites that were completely different for a mobile device compared to websites that were designed with a responsive layout structured. So what does that mean? Well, essentially, when we're looking at a mobile-specific website or a mobile-friendly website, we're talking about a site that is completely unique to mobile search. So essentially when someone searches for, let's say they're looking up CoreyPadveen.com, they might see on a mobile device that it switches to m.CoreyPadveen.com because m.CoreyPadveen.com is the mobile recognized version of the website that now is altered completely in terms of its style, structure, content in order to appeal specifically to mobile users. Then in 2016, last year, Google announced their mobile first index. Now, what is Google's mobile first index? Google essentially last year made a bunch of announcements at their I/O event, which they host every year, where they actually let everyone know that mobile was now going to be looked at entirely separately from desktop. So now no longer would you be running campaigns. This applied to AdWords as well. Now no longer would you be running campaigns or optimizing for your site in general, applying to mobile as well. Mobile would now have its own index, which means that mobile search results are now completely separate from desktop search results. This means that if you have the first rank position on, now this won't necessarily apply to every website, for example, Amazon or one of the largest players, but if you as an operator or you as an affiliate have a website that ranks first on desktop for a particular search term, you might not even rank on the first page on mobile, depending on the kind of attention you've given to your mobile content, the kind of attention you've given to your layout, the kind of attention you've given to your optimization from a mobile standpoint. So mobile first index means that mobile and desktop now operate completely independently of one another when it comes to rankings. And lastly, 2017, what was announced in January, which is the second major step in this whole mobile get-in strategy, was the implementation of visibility as one of their top ranking factors. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that your website needs to be discoverable? No, it actually means that Google is now going a step further than rewarding websites that are keeping it very white hat, above board when it comes to their websites. But now when you have pop-ups, when you have interstitial ads, which are ads that pop up as a page between the search ranking, the search result and the actual website, interstitials and pop-ups are now detrimental to your search rankings. So that means that if you have been putting in, say, affiliate ads as interstitials, if as someone is scrolling away from your page, they have a pop-up that says, don't go, sign up for this bonus, something along those lines, you'll actually be penalized. Everything now needs to be related much more towards the organic use of search results, the organic use of a website, so that people take actions on their own accord as opposed to being pushed into them. The world of advertising has taken quite a few hits as far as pushing people towards taking action. Now it's much more about providing them with the necessary content, providing them with fast, valuable experiences, and those experiences are then left to the user to decide whether or not they want to click on an ad, whether or not they want to sign up for something, whether or not they want to take advantage of an offer. Instead of pushing an interstitial, instead of hindering the actual overall experience and then forcing a user to take some sort of action which they wouldn't have otherwise taken. So that's the next step that Google's taken as far as improving that experience. The key to all of this, the most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to your ads, when it comes to your websites, when it comes to what you're doing, mobile or otherwise, is content. If you want to improve your search results, if you want to improve those results, particularly when it comes to mobile results now with mobile first indexing, content is going to be key. The difference with mobile specifically is that on top of content, there is speed. You need to have an extremely fast-paced website in order for your results to improve. Now, Google has a number of different tools. There's a mobile-friendly test tool, which Google offers for free. There is the mobile speed tool, which Google tests the speed of your website. There are a few different things that you can do to improve on that speed. For example, there are plenty of options that exist to condense and compress the size of images. If you have any sort of Java, get rid of it. It's now being penalized by Google, so get rid of that when it comes to mobile in particular. If you have any videos on your website, you'd actually be much better off pulling those in from a place like YouTube rather than actually loading the videos onto the site, because they take significantly longer to load. So adding in a YouTube player as opposed to having the video player built in. Video, large images, and Java are the three areas where you can really improve the speed of your website. Now, considering there is a mobile-first index, it also means that speed and content quality are going to come first and foremost over, let's say, things like keyword density and the size of your website. You don't need a 30,000 page website to rank first on Google anymore. You could have a 10-page website with extremely high-quality content. Granted, you want to have new content, refreshing content, content that is relevant to the user, so you'll add some stuff here and there, but you don't need to focus so much on having tons and tons of content thrown onto your website simply to have those additional pages. Having a smaller mobile website that focuses on small images, quality content, and value will lead to a much faster running website, much faster load time. And of course, you want to focus on creating content that is relevant to your audience. Again, Penguin and Panda, the two updates as they relate now, especially to the mobile-first index on Google, means relevance to your audience. It means understanding who your audience is, understanding what it is they're looking for, particularly when it comes to mobile. And that means that you'll want to look at things like your analytics platform, whatever it is you might be using, and segmenting your mobile visits or your tablet visits from your desktop visits, finding out what content is being viewed by your mobile visitors, and then creating specific mobile content that relates more towards those mobile visits and creating desktop content for those desktop visitors. Either way, you want to make sure that the content you create, whether it's for mobile or for desktop, relates specifically to the users coming to that site. So what are a few things that we can do in order to improve those results, in order to get the most out of our mobile presence? Well, first and foremost, it's all about a question of value. So like I just said, get an understanding of your mobile audience, take some time to review historical data on your website of the pages visited from mobile, so you can segment, if you're using, how many people here are using Google Analytics to track their website analytics? Well, so the majority of people here are using it. Whatever it is you're using, you do have the ability to segment your desktop traffic and your mobile traffic. In that mobile traffic segmentation, you can dive into the behavior of your audience, you could dive into the content that they have visited, and you can get an idea of what it is exactly they have viewed, and create additional content that adds value to that audience. So what is it they're looking for when they get to your site, and how can you entice them to keep coming back by creating more of that value-added content? Next, one of the key announcements that Google made in 2016, like I mentioned, was the ability to now segment your desktop and mobile campaigns. This means that when it comes to running AdWords campaigns, when it comes to running display campaigns, whatever types of ad campaigns you're running, whether it's on Google, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is you're running, all of these campaigns can be segmented desktop and mobile. This means that your bids can be structured entirely differently from desktop to mobile. Your content can be structured differently. Your landing pages can lead to different areas. The key that you want to keep in mind here is you want to take advantage of the fact that Google, Facebook, whomever, is in fact providing you with the tools necessary to run mobile-specific campaigns. And considering the fact that everyone in this room uses mobile very differently than they use desktop, they use their tablets for different reasons than they use desktop or even a mobile device, you'll want to run mobile campaigns on their own because they were not going to be used the same way by your visitors as, say, a desktop campaign. Then you want to focus on the ability to run very fast campaigns. So, do you want to run campaigns to very fast loading pages? You don't want to clutter them with tons and tons of content. People aren't going to scroll forever through your pages to read paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of content. They might watch a video, but they're not going to watch a 10-minute video. They're not going to necessarily need to have 5 images on a mobile landing page. They could have something simple, quick, followed by a call to action, followed by a form, whatever it might be. You want to focus on having very light and to the point landing pages, and you want to focus on having them load extremely quickly. That really is the key when it comes to mobile, because truth be told, if you actually do get a click from one of your ads, that's excellent. But if it takes way too long to load, I know just myself today, in sitting on the train on the way here, there were 2 or 3 different pages that I had clicked on. It was taking too long to load, so I went back to whether it was my Facebook newsfeed, my Twitter newsfeed, my email, whatever it was, to go back to something else. There is too much going on social, on mobile, on search, to force people to sit there and wait. The average attention span of an internet user is, who wants to guess? I don't know if I'll be able to hear you, but what's that? 2? As you said 2? Oh, that's better than what most people guess, 15, 20 seconds. It's actually 6. The average attention span of a goldfish, by the way, is 7.5. So people aren't going to give you attention for all that long. And if you make them wait 10, 12, 15 seconds for a page to load, which doesn't sound like very long, but remember, Vine was successful for the years that it was successful because in 6 seconds they showed you valuable content and then you could go to something else. 6 seconds is as much time as people will give you before they give up and go somewhere else. So if your load time is anything longer than 3 or 4 seconds, you're playing a very dangerous game with losing potentially valuable clientele. When it comes to affiliates specifically, you need to remember that you're just the starting point. There is still the operator. There is still the end player where someone is going to have to then click on the offer, someone's going to have to then click to sign up, and if they get to an operator who isn't optimized for mobile, who doesn't have a mobile app, remember, 89% of time spent engaging with mobile content is spent on a mobile application. This means that if the operator you're working with doesn't care about mobile and is only focused on desktop, you're not going to be driving all that much traffic from your mobile audience. And that means that any traffic that you're sending to that operator needs to be desktop exclusive. And quite frankly, if an operator isn't focused on mobile whatsoever and isn't thinking in terms of where is the future headed as far as players go, well, they might not be worth sending all that much traffic to in the first place because a lifetime value when there's no mobile option isn't going to be all that high. So you want to make sure that the operators you're working with are also thinking mobile first, especially if that's a focus of yours. You'll also always want to keep the user in mind. Whatever it is, whether it's the actual ad content itself, whether it is the operator that you're working with, whether it is the content that you're sharing, the user experience is an extremely important component when it comes to mobile. Again, the beauty of mobile is that it is, for all intents and purposes, singular, which means that you're not distracted by 500 things at the same time. If someone's within an application, all they're doing is working within that app. If someone is engaging with a piece of content for a brief moment in time in that news feed, in that search, in those search results, what they're focused on is that one piece of content. So the user experience from the moment they click on an ad to the moment they get to your website to the moment they fill out a lead generation form or the moment they actually click on a call to action to the moment they sign up with the operator, get the bonus, and start playing, all of that needs to be kept in mind, and you'll want to think not just about the mobile campaign or the ad, but the entire experience as a whole when you're building out these campaigns. And lastly, like I said, Google now is focusing on visibility as a ranking factor. That means that pop-ups, that means that interstitials, that means that a lot of the older ways of leveraging advertising, especially on mobile where these kinds of techniques are hugely frowned upon, those are no longer viable means of driving conversion. So if you want to improve search results, especially now with a mobile-first index, getting rid of all of those older means of getting user data is an important step to take. Now, with that, I think we have like 5 or 6 minutes for some questions, so I'd be happy to open it up to anybody who would like to know a bit more about any of the things we talked about or something that relates to you specifically.
And if you want to, you could use our Slido app, which is sli.do, and use the hashtag LAC 2017 to ask your questions. Or just raise your hand and ask them live. I've got one to start, Corey. Is the mobile index less competitive than the traditional web Google index?
So the mobile first index is not necessarily that it's less competitive, because you are talking about a mobile index that is taken from the entire Google index. The only difference is that now the mobile ranking factors operate independently from the desktop ranking factors. So any website that is still on Google does still have a presence on the mobile first index. The difference is that those search rankings are going to vary based on how the website is structured.
Is it easier for me to get to the top of the rankings on mobile?
If you have a mobile application specifically, or if you have a mobile website specifically, then yes. The benefit to mobile search ranking is it's all about relevance and all about speed, as opposed to being about size. So for example, like I said before, you don't need a 20, 30, 50,000 page site to be more relevant. Obviously, it does help if you have a lot of content, but it's about having relevant content and mobile optimized content. So if you have a completely mobile optimized website, or a standalone mobile website, or like I said, a standalone mobile application, then you do have a much better chance of finding yourself at the top of those rankings.
And are you able to be competitive using standard CMSs that also are adaptive?
You can. I mean, WordPress, for example, is an example of a website. I mean, what is it? It's something like 70-80% of websites are built on a CMS like WordPress. So the use of those is not at all frowned upon or penalized or regarded any lower by Google, considering the vast number of websites that are built on a platform like it. The difference is that you still do have to implement traditional search techniques, so a search optimization technique. So you do want to still build links in a traditional way. You do still want to improve on your mobile optimization with a website like WordPress. The difference with a WordPress built website is that you can use a plugin, for example, and some of these plugins are free. I would recommend looking at some of the premium versions of these plugins to build a mobile specific one. I think that they're usually, at shows like this, there are usually some websites that do offer or usually some companies that offer the ability to build a mobile website for $7, and you could build an entire mobile application or an entire mobile website for your current desktop site that creates a completely mobile-friendly version. I mean, you can go onto WordPress search plugins and just type in mobile application, and you'll get thousands of results. And it's just a question of finding the one that makes the most sense to you to create a mobile standalone version of your website.
Brilliant. Audience questions. Do we have some questions for Corey? We have time for one or two more. Yep.
What would you say is the main difference between just a responsive website and a mobile-first website?
So a responsive website is a website that is unchanged as far as the content, unchanged as far as what's actually visible on the site when you move from one screen to another. So for example, on a desktop, on a handheld mobile, on a tablet, you'll have the exact same content. It's just a question of how it's laid out that's going to change. On a mobile first website, or on a mobile only website, you might have completely different content structure. You might have fewer pages. You might have a different menu entirely, because some of those elements, for example, a contact form on a desktop site might simply be a phone number submission on a mobile website, or a email submission on a mobile website, to make it simpler. So the entire structure of a mobile only website or a mobile first website is going to be restructured to appeal specifically to mobile users, whereas responsive is just going to change the layout and the look of the site, but it won't actually change the content.
Brilliant. Anyone last question? Round of applause for Corey.
Well, thank you very much.